You have Brooklyn, which is the highest heroin use outside the city of Baltimore. So you come from Brooklyn down to Glen Burnie, you say you pick up at Severna Park.
No, my Glen Burnie office supervises
Okay.
Brooklyn, Glen Burnie. They supervise the rest of the state, or the rest of the county, yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask, and so my question is some of this actually reduction in crime because you run people out of Annapolis and they run to another part of the county?
Amen.
You know, or is it, are you really changing? For example, you mentioned Boston, named after Leroy Boston, the Circle, which is now public-private. Now, the person who owns it, their rules and regulations are very different than over at Court in College Creek Terrace. So a lot of those people could not get back in. So where are they? That's my question. I don't think that they have been eliminated, that they have rehabilitated. I think they're just moving into other pockets. So I guess my question is, I keep seeing the sheriff's office, I work for the county. You know, how involved is the county? Because I know I am born and raised here. So I see the people, I'm seeing the shifts, I'm seeing what's happening in the northern part of the county. And so the real question is, are you really reducing crime or are you running people out of Annapolis? Another example, just one more question. What about offenders on the water? Okay, I work for the county, this is my district, District 6. The harbor master runs people out of the city of Annapolis. They take their boats and go right around the corner to Wings Creek where Annapolis has no jurisdiction. So now this is my district and I work for the county. We have no regulations like the city of Annapolis. They have the tightest maritime laws anywhere. So we have to get the help from the water belongs to the state, the pier belongs to the county, the street belongs to the city. And we have not been able to we're going to actually have to change, go to the state and say either we're gonna annex Wings Creek to the city, so you all can deal with it, or we don't know what else to do. So, you know, my real question is, I hear everything you're doing, this is a really great program, but I know for a fact, because I'm homegrown, it's moving. And the people who are coming in to get drugs don't even live here.
Yeah, praise the Lord.
They don't even live here. I know that for a fact. So I'm looking at those numbers. I remember when it was a spike because there was a huge influx of men selling drugs from Trinidad and other places. They just went somewhere. If you didn't lock them up, they went somewhere else. And so I guess my question is, how good are you at looking at what's that? Once it leaves Annapolis, are you just finished with it?
Well, I can comment, as far as the water,
Okay.
we have limited jurisdiction within the water. We
Yes,
do work
you do.
with DNR. So again, some of those things are things that do need to change at the legislative level. There's a lot of things that we are finding in collaborations with other agencies, Parole and Probation, Anne Arundel, the school system, where there's actually changes that need to be made within Maryland law. So as far as that, I can't honestly comment too much on the waterways. I can comment on the moving. What happened when Clay Street was torn down, Old College Creek Terrace, and Old and O'Berry Court, a lot of people were offered vouchers, and many people started in other HACA properties and then opted to not like that and take their vouchers and move to Glen Burnie. So what we have seen is, yes, they provide a Glen Burnie address, they live in Glen Burnie, they commit their crime in Annapolis. I can give you a perfect example. Avon Johnson, homegrown, started on College Creek Terrace, moved to Ben's Drive. I was a 16 car, which is the Ben's Drive area. I remember dealing with him when he was this big. He gives a Golden Run or some sort of circle off Hospital Drive, which is where we have found a lot of them have moved. He had then come here to commit a shooting in Harbor House. So what we find is, and even in talking to them, they think that we don't know that they're in Glen Burnie. We do know that they are in Glen Burnie. We know that that is where they're living. We know that some of the babies' mothers are staying there, and those are hideaways. We also know there's other parts in the county, Odenton, that they're not necessarily a target by us here with housing authority rules, the stricter rules that Penrose and Landex has imposed on some of the properties, but they are still coming here to commit their crimes. And what we are currently seeing as well, and I will cover this in the heroin, is not just areas of housing authority, but we are seeing an increase in the Hicks Dorsey, Carver, historic areas that we had combated crime, pushed it out, and they're starting to move back in because of some of the changes that we made. Sometimes we do see that. We put pressure on one neighborhood and it blooms or mushrooms in another neighborhood. So we are aware, and we work with the county police. We have a couple officers on different task forces, our drugs. So yes, we do know that there's some in Glen Burnie. And we have seen that there has been a shift. Some of the guys that had lived here before had started committing some crimes on Route 2 in Glen Burnie, Brooklyn, into the Baltimore City line. So yes, I think we have done a good job of suppressing it, but we have also done that by putting people in jail, which in Maryland, if you get a 10-year sentence and you have good behavior, you serve 7 years and 3/4 of the year. That's a minimum mandatory. It's not 10. If you get a 5-year minimum mandatory after good behavior, you could be out within 2.5. So what we're seeing is when we had, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the shootings at the mall, Robinwood, Bowman, they were feuding. We targeted known criminals then. Well, that was 2008. We're coming up on 2014. A lot of them are re-entering, and we are starting to see them back. Currently, they're just quiet. Hopefully, through parole and probation, we can keep them quiet, and hopefully they can make a change and not get back into the criminal lifestyle. But as Sean has said, it is very difficult when that's something that you're used to.
And just to touch base, this is a huge problem we have with probation, and the problem that we have is one of my supervisors came to me recently and he said, I have an issue with the transfer policy, okay? When an offender wants to move from House A to House B, wants to move from Annapolis to Glen Burnie, he goes in, he says, hey, I want to move to Glen Burnie. And the agent says, okay, well, let me get an agent assignment for Glen Burnie and I want to transfer your case to Glen Burnie. Well, he can't. I said, you know, Damien, you sit here and you complain, come up with the solution for me. So he typed up this whole policy and this whole form, and he said, look, I think this will do it. We don't, because what happens is that individual getting ready to get violated in this office, so they say, well, I'm going to move to Glen Burnie. So then they think that, you know, well, you won't violate me because I'm going to get a new agent, and I'll do that. And then once I start to make trouble in Glen Burnie, then I'll move to Baltimore City. And then I'll move here. So he came up with the form that needs to be filled out before the person transfers. And one of the requirements is that individual must give us either a certified letter or a letter from the homeowner that we call to say, hey, Jim Smith said he's going to be residing with you at 123 Main Street. Are you the homeowner? Yes. So we look it up now. So we're not letting that person jump from A to B to C to D. We're making sure that we're doing our homework now, and that, you know, and if they're going to be in violation, we tell them, no, you can't move. Now, you know, well, why can't I move? Well, you're pending a violation of probation, or you haven't given me verification. So we're slowing it down on our end that way with that form, and that's something that I've implemented countywide that we must do. The form was so well received by my boss in the upper chain that it has now been distributed statewide. So every agent in the state is now required to use that form, and they're required to email the new probation agent once everything's verified, and not only email the probation agent, but also the probation agent's supervisor. So we know in advance that this person's coming, we know when they should be coming, and if they don't come that day, then we know that, hey, we got to go find them. So we're trying to combat that on our end as far as this whole jumping from A to B to C by doing this form, by being more proactive with other offices.
And also, just real quick, and I hear your concern in reference to our crime going down, and they're moving into the different counties or whatever. We have a lot of officers that are assigned to different task force. For an example, you know, our narcotics task force. So we are well aware of where they are and what they're doing, even though they're not in the city of Annapolis. The commanders, me being one of the commanders, and on the county, we work hand in hand with Anne County and sharing information. Every other week, we go to a crime meeting with Anne County. So some of the people that we're looking at here, that was here, that moved to the county, that may have moved to Baltimore, we still know what they're doing. We're still on track with what they're doing, because the crime may not be they come from the county and do the crime in the city, or do the crime in the city and go to the county. We're well aware if they're in Baltimore, we know if they're in DC. We know where they are because we work with the different agencies and we continue to share the information. So where crime may be lowered here because they're moving someplace else, we still are on track with them through the different programs that we have in community services, with the different programs that our officers are assigned to, the different task force, which are many. The sharing of the information from the top down, being the chief and the commanders that go to the different meetings. We meet with whenever there's a new agent that comes in from the FBI that's assigned to the city of Annapolis, we still meet with them and we share the information with the FBI, with the county police, with the sheriff department, Boulder City, DC, Metropolitan, so we're still in touch. We know we're still tracking them.
That's good to know.
Looking at the graph, it looks like crime is going down, but in our last meeting, didn't we say that armed robberies and shootings were going up?
Yes.
Aren't they considered violent? I mean, if they're going up,
It is one of the Part 1, but that's all Part 1 crimes. There are 7 of them. The robberies did increase,
And as
so
well as the aggravated
they did
assaults.
increase, but.
but this is Part 1 as a total, so it
okay.
includes
So this includes
robbery,
other stuff that makes
Right,
it.
motor vehicle
homicide,
theft,
rape.
Okay.
right, homicides,
Larceny.
rape, theft.
So it's only that one piece that's going up.
Currently.
Since
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
These charts, do they take into consideration any increase in population or decrease in population, any percentage calculation?
No, it's strictly numbers, crime numbers that are reported to the FBI.
Because I would assume that 1975 population of Annapolis was much smaller than the population of Annapolis today.
Geographically, it was much smaller.
That makes this figure even more significant if that has not been taken into consideration. So this is
Yes,
Since O'Malley signed this marijuana bill,
yes.
that's gonna increase far as crime is concerned, because a lot of people gonna know that if they have that amount on them, that, 10 grams or whatever it is, because on the street today, everybody going around asking, did O'Malley sign the bill?
Right, right.
Okay,
Absolutely.
they know that they can still get away with it, even though they had a criminal record.
Well, if it's no longer a crime to possess
Right,
10 grams
that's
or
what
under,
I'm
then
saying.
correct, it would not, then it would no longer be a crime. There are certain things that were crimes that are no longer crimes that we
Right.
change. So that's just unfortunately, society changes. Things are more alcohol is acceptable now. Marijuana is becoming more acceptable now.
Right.
I don't necessarily know that crime is going to increase because of marijuana. I would suspect that crime will increase because of heroin. That's where we're going to start to see it as people become more addicted to heroin, which is something that people need, like your body physically needs it. We're going to start to see it. We may start to see. I'm not saying we're going to. But that's where you're going to see. I don't myself professionally think that we're going to see this huge influx in crime with the legalization of 10 grams or under. I don't, I mean, it would not affect a parole and probation probably anymore, depending on, those are things, I mean, they're very complicated things for us, for testing positive, if they're not supposed to be. So there's a lot of interagency stuff that's, the smell of marijuana is probable cause for us, a dog hits because it smells marijuana. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked out in between that I don't necessarily see violent crime or other crimes necessarily increasing as a result of it. It's just going to be something that is socially acceptable. Legally socially acceptable.
But it's going, because the legislature, okay, before he signed that bill, there was gossip all over the street. Oh, we can have 10 grams and not get
Sure.
any criminal attached to their record.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying?
Correct, and it's just going to be, instead of hiding behind when we come in, they're going to be able to smoke it in front of us.
Right.
I mean,
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, that's, yeah, I
Right.
don't know that would necessarily
But if they're
increase crime.
selling it, you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
They can
I do see what
legally
you're
sell
saying. If
it.
somebody's selling and they've got 7 grams on them and it's packaged to sell, that's stuff that we have to work out.
Right.
Right. I mean, the
So-
same issues that you're going to deal with are the same, as a citizen and a resident, are the same ones that we have to combat as law enforcement. If you have 7 grams on you and they're packaged into smaller bags, you look like you're selling
Right.
it on the street corner, but it's 7 grams, what do we do?
Yeah, because
Right. I mean, that's where we are. It's
because he signed the bill,
right.
okay? But then you got all these criminals out here finding the little loopholes
Absolutely.
that they can do. Then all of a sudden you're gonna have your community gonna be cramming with people, knowing that $6 grand, oh, I'm not gonna get no time, or I'm not gonna have no criminal record, and